Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Threesome FPL podcast. This is our second preview podcast for the exciting 23-24 season with so many unanswered questions. I'm Phil and I'm here with Anthony. How are you, Anthony?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. And I'm going to try not to be so grumpy today. Appreciate I was a little bit grumpy on the last pod. I let Mike get in my head about my first draft, but not today. I'll be a changed man. And I'm actually looking forward to the season, boys. It's only a few days away now. Feeling quite excited about it. So, yeah, bring it on.
Oh, okay. This is a new positive Anthony. It's good news.
Until the scores come in after the weekend.
Okay. Yeah,
we'll see how I am on next week's pod.
Fair enough. Michael, how are you?
Watermelon sugar. Hi. Very well, thank you.
No, please. No.
Oh.
No, so we on our not already within a minute or something talk about our other podcast, Chip Advisor. Please do search for it. Mike decided he wanted a second catchphrase because he's developed a catchphrase of his own already anyway. And he's saying watermelon sugar high. I was contacted by a couple of people actually to say it's quite awkward hearing Mike talk about watermelon sugar high, which he was in this week's podcast, which we did about what's in your fridge, and they said there is a meaning to that you probably don't want to be saying to people.
Are there sexual connotations?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm a very sexual guy, so you know. Just being me, guys. You know, just being me.
Get messy.
Just Google it. Maybe not during the pod, and then you might understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine.
So this week, since last week, we have changed our teams a little bit, and we're going to do our maybe final team reveals. And we've got some questions sent in, and Mike is playing the role of a doctor because there's been a lot of injuries since last week's episode. So maybe. Do you want to go over the injury situation now, Mike? Get them out of the way. Let people know.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Why don't we? Why don't you head to the physio's room? Oh, hello there. Is Dr. Mikey here?
Oh God.
With an injury update.
Are you having a watermelon sugar high?
Why can't you just be yourself?
Oh, fine. I'll be myself.
Do all doctors talk like that? I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so
no doctors can write in English.
That's true.
It's just a scribble. Sorry, Mike.
Largely irrelevant to the feature, but yeah. So I have been looking at some of those questionables. Obviously, there are a lot of players that are marked red on the game. You don't need me to explain what's happening there, maybe with the odd exception. But looking at those ones that are yellow and marked possible and trying to figure out for you just how close they are to return. So if we start with defenders, first of all,
good place.
Fabian Schär, or indeed Schär, do you believe? I don't believe he's going to be back in time for this weekend. He's featured in all but 2 of the games last season for Newcastle, so he's worth a look at 5 mil. However, he's not featured in 4 pre-season games. Only 1 out of 5 did he make. He is meant to be back on the grass this week, but I don't think they'll risk him. Jacob Murphy, who's a 5 million midfielder, has been covering for him in the last couple of friendlies, and I expect him probably to start this weekend against Villa. So Fabian Schär.
Sorry, Newcastle got a tricky start to the season with Villa, Man City, and Liverpool.
Yeah. So Schär probably want to avoid. Rico Henry, he wasn't risked at the weekend, but I expect him to be back. He has trained this week. Rico Henry, it was just a precautionary leaving him out of the weekend in the friendly. Fully expecting to be back there, and I think at 4.5 million, well worth a look. Gets up and down well for Brentford. And of the Brentford picks in defence, he's probably the one to go for. Tyrick Mitchell, not looking good for him. I think this week's going to come too soon. So Crystal Palace asset there at 4.5 mil, one to leave alone. And we mentioned him last week, just some clarity, at least another month for Alex Moreno, who's undergoing surgery on his hamstring injury. They were trying to avoid surgery. He limped off in the end of May against Liverpool, actually, in the Premier League last season. But they've now conceded they need to operate. He has been operated on, but at least a month recovery time on that. So, not probably worth having him in at the moment with a view to him coming in the short term.
Okay.
Let's move into mid.
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry, you're still going. That's fine. I forgot you were.
Oh, I'm still going.
Yep, no problem.
Oh yeah, let's go into the midfield, shall we, Mikey? Okay, yes, let's talk to Mikey.
Don't
Oh no,
worry,
that's me.
I've looped the audio whilst you chat to
Great.
yourself.
Umbermo was bought off just as a precaution at the weekend, shortly into the friendly. He got a dead leg. He's been photographed back in training, in full training with the rest of the squad. Fully expected to be back in. With that in mind, he's back in my 11 at 6.5 mil on pens, on set plays, and in with the absence of Tony. So yeah, Umbermo, green light, guys, get on him. The game's still showing him as doubtful. He will start this weekend. And finally, a couple of strikers to make mention of, I guess. Nkuku is out for months rather than weeks. So, that maybe puts extra emphasis on Jackson as an option up front. And Højlund, who's joined from Man United, at least 3 weeks away. Could offer value at 7 mil, although not prolific for Atalanta. But in a United side that could well be free scoring this season. One to look at, but not for a few weeks, gang. There concludes the physio room. Yeah, that is good.
Thank you,
okay,
Mike.
fade it out. Wow, okay.
Well, I was going to fade it out, and I thought, you know what? I actually did consider fading it out, and I thought, you know what? People know what they're going to get with us. We don't need to suddenly start fading things.
We don't need some kind of slick operation.
No, gosh, no.
I mean, we've only been doing this for 4 years. Come on now.
Yeah.
Who's your favourite Højlund? The one that signed for United, or Izzy Højlund in Neighbours?
Oh, definitely Izzy Højlund.
Natalie Bassingthwaite.
Yes.
Yep.
Her of the lead singer of the dance act Rogue Traders.
Correct. She had an affair with Carl.
Well, she didn't.
Oh, she did.
Izzy had an affair with Carl. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Max Højlund, her ex-husband, doesn't really get a look in my eyes.
No. Anyway,
thanks for that, Michael. The update on the injuries.
No problem.
So, Anthony, what?
Yes.
You've got your hand up. This is exciting.
Well, I just feel like this might be a better way to not talk over each other. But I know Bournemouth assets aren't maybe on people's radar, but it feels like the entire Bournemouth squad should be in Mike's list there, doesn't it? We're actually going to start the season without a right back, which could be quite interesting against West Ham on Saturday.
Or are we?
Oh,
no, we're not.
No,
we are going to start without a right back.
I think we're going to start with a right back.
Is this your way of hinting at a signing, or do you?
Oh yeah, like the club let Mike know the inner the inner scene on a transfer.
Oh, well, I'll talk to you off air, gentlemen.
He is Mr. Bournemouth after all. Come on now.
Oh, you're too kind. But
the guy that Bournemouth wanted from Atalanta looks like he's going to Wolfsburg. Oh,
I mean, you would choose Wolfsburg over us, wouldn't you? But yeah, okay. Well, let's see. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, Anthony, you said you've changed. What we're going to do? We're going to go through our new team reveals, and we're going to go starting lineup, and then we're going to go bench, and then we're going to have a quick look at who's got a good fixture run at the start of the season, and then we will answer your listener questions, all in a lunch break. It's incredible, Anthony.
Good times,
crazy
times.
More positive today. Should we end that by listening to your team?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I mean, you may cut it to pieces, but I'm feeling happier with this team than I was last week. So let's see. I'm not made drastic changes, I have to say.
Wait one moment, I forgot.
Yeah,
lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. That does make me feel good.
One.
Yeah. So I've changed my goalkeeper. I had Martinez last week at Villa. I've gone to Unana. What's your name? Mainly because he came out and shouted Harry Maguire so much that Harry Maguire is now off to West Ham. So
have you not taken into account? If you're not taking into account the stats I gave you about how many touches and passes completed last season,
it was
does that not sway you in any way?
I didn't want to blow your trumpet, but basically I did actually listen to you, Mike, and I did listen to some of your impressive stats, and you swayed me on Unana. So if he turns out to be rubbish, it's all your fault.
Strangely, I had Onana, and I've listened to Mike, and now removed him.
Okay.
Disappointing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got Onana in goal.
Yes, I've got a back three
Lovely.
One of my back three currently has 0.2% ownership, but I'll do him last. So I've kept with Gabriel and Shaw. Arsenal have got very good fixtures. Manchester United have got quite good fixtures. I like Luke Shaw in there. He can be on set pieces at times as well. So my 0.2% ownership, boys, is a Bournemouth player. I've always got to have a Bournemouth player in my starting 11. It is Kirkez.
Oh,
I've
you
not seen him
copied
live
me.
yet. Yeah. See,
You
I listened to
copied
you
me.
on that one, Phil.
Yeah.
Apparently he's good. And yeah, he might be on set pieces as well. Now, I know after Saturday we have a particularly nasty run, but I think I've got players on my bench who I can swap around and bench him for when we've got Liverpool and harder games. So yeah, that's my back three. What are your thoughts there, boys?
So you're starting Kirkez. So
I'm
you're
starting Kirkez.
starting a 4.5 million defender. Who else did you have? Shaw and
Gabriel.
Gabriel. So with those as your starting three, and I assume some cheaper options on the bench, you're focusing your money on your midfield and attack.
Yeah, I think there's possibly more gains from that myself. Yeah, I've gone for a 3-4-3 formation. So
okay.
And I don't want to stop you mid team, but I'm going to.
No.
No, I just think it's worth. I think it's just worth. We were going to mention the fixtures. You know, the team that had great fixtures or good fixtures coming up. I think we're going to reference that quite a bit in our lineup. So probably just best to here and now flag up those teams. You know, so that we're not constantly referring back on ourselves. Okay. So Phil, those teams are Brighton. Clearly have a nice run.
So Brighton start with Luton at home, Wolves away, who it looks like they're going to have Gary O'Neill as manager, and then West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Man United away, and Bournemouth at home. So it's not bad. Arsenal have got a great start to the season there. Nottingham Forest at home, Palace away, Fulham at home, Man United at home, Everton away, Spurs at home, and then Bournemouth away. Other teams we could start. Brentford, actually, that's why people are getting on Burmo. They've got Tottenham at home, Fulham away, Palace at home, Bournemouth at home. Everton have even got a good start, but where do you go with Everton, really, especially now Danjuma's flagged as injured? Fulham at home, Aston Villa away, Wolves at home, Sheffield United away. Newcastle don't have a good start to the season, which is a shame because that'll nobble a few people. Man City have got Burnley away, Newcastle at home, Sheffield United away. So that's two of the promoted teams in the first three games. Fulham at home, West Ham away, Forest at home, Wolves away. City have got a ridiculous run. That is such an easy start to the season. Man United, their first three games, Wolves, Spurs, Forest, before they play Arsenal and Brighton. It's probably those teams, really.
Yeah.
Spurs and West Ham aren't bad either, to be honest.
Okay. So sorry, Ant. So Anana, Gabriel, Shaw, Kirkez. Those are your defence and keeper. Who have you got in midfield?
Yep. You must have gone boom shakalaka in midfield.
Well, I looked at how many. So my midfield are not going to get me much points from a differential point of view in terms of my starting four. I think are pretty high in the selected by currently. So the top five, four of them are in the top five. So Saka, Odegaard, Bruno Fernandes, and Matoma. So as you flagged there, Brian got some good fixtures. So no real surprises there. I had Saka virtually all of last season. He was always in the points for me. Odegaard was one I didn't have because I had Martinelli. I've got Odegaard this time. Of course, we know you boys have talked me out of having Trossard. I had him in there last week. He did.
I'm sort of disappointed. I'm sort of disappointed we have. That is the one disadvantage to doing this podcast is my knowledge then gives you a leg up, because if you weren't listening to this podcast and the sheer genius that I impart, I'd probably be rinsing you for the first 6 months of the season.
Would you though?
You'd make decisions like Trossard. I mean,
he scored at the weekend.
That sums you up
very loosely. Very. Look, if you're going to accuse me of chasing last week's points, I had him in before he scored. Just to clarify, I've actually taken him out after he scored, so I'm actually doing the opposite.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Talk about. So we got a 3. We got a 5. Who's your 2?
They got a 3-4.
3-4-3, my friend.
3-4. Oh, okay. Who's your 3?
Oh, so same as last week for two of them. So Haaland and Jackson. Jackson, I'm gutted about that Bournemouth didn't sign. I think he'll be good for Chelsea this season. And Callum Wilson is my third striker. Now, I know Newcastle have not the best fixture run. I do know that. But I've seen a couple of clips of him in pre-season and he looks good. And I fancy him to be in the goals this season. I think Newcastle are going to have a strong season still. So I've got some bench options potentially that would mean I could bench him next week. But we will see. So that's my starting 11.
Okay.
I think it's better than last week's.
Interesting that you've gone and spent the extra £500,000 on Wilson over Isaac.
Yeah, mainly because he used to play for Bournemouth.
And he's on pens. He's on pens, isn't he?
He is on pens. I do love Callum Wilson. Without doubt, one of my favourite ex-Bournemouth players. I'll be honest, I didn't really analyse that situation of the money with Isaac like you possibly would. I just saw Callum Wilson and thought, oh, I like Callum Wilson. I'm going to stick him in my team. That's just how I roll.
So talk us through your bench.
Well, Bournemouth legend here, Darren Randolph on my bench. Appreciate he's not going to play, but you're not going to have a goalkeeper who's going to play, really, are you? Unless you want to waste loads of money. There's no point having a $5.5 million keeper.
I'll talk to you in a minute about Turner, who's $4 million.
If I can just, But
Nana's definitely going to play, but it doesn't matter. I could have you on my bench for all it matters.
Just for the record, just in case, let's say Neto gets injured for Bournemouth, and you're then looking for a keeper to come off the bench who might just randomly be a bit of a short-term win for you. Radu will be our sub-keeper. Randolph has had no minutes in pre-season. So Radu is $4 million. If you're sat on Randolph, if you're sat in this game and you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking about putting Randolph in, an easy win is to swap him out for Radu because he is the second keeper for Bournemouth.
Hang on a second.
He does have a lovely beard.
Is Randolph not a West Ham?
No,
Randolph is with Bournemouth. Has been for a little while now.
Since January, Phil. Keep up.
Married to Alexandra Burke, as I found out randomly not so long ago, when she was sat just a few seats away from me, and I thought that looks like Alexandra Burke. Didn't know she was a Bournemouth fan, and I've worked back and worked it out. So
you've done some research. Well done.
I really hope she wasn't expecting to see her husband play football. Dear, oh dear. Right.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
The rest of my bench. Number 1, Harvey Barnes. Really like Harvey Barnes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you are just effectively what you've done from last week's pod is copy my team.
No, don't flatter yourself, young man.
Oh, I can't beat Phil, so I'll just be like him.
Oh, no, he's on my bench. So get back in your box, young man. Wait till your turn. Thank you very much.
I can't wait.
Harvey Barnes on my bench. Next to him, another ex-Bournemouth player, Tyrone Mings. Villa have some nice fixtures, I think, or nicer fixtures.
Why Mings is your pick in defence over Pau?
Pardon?
Pau Torres.
Why Mings as opposed to Pau Torres or Consa?
Because Tyrone Mings is very tall. He's got lovely hair and he used to play for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Okay, all of which I think are valid reasons to pick him over any of those names.
He stood on Ibrahimovic's head.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, good times.
Okay.
And I've not touched my last player on my bench, Anderson, who of Luton, who you flagged up, Mike. You knew a lot about him. He used to play for Barnsley on loan and was very good in set pieces, etc., etc. Yeah. Well, being third on my bench, I'd like to think that something's gone terribly wrong with my team if I have to call on him at any point soon. So I'm sticking with him.
Okay.
Because the money I've freed up there has allowed me to go with others. So I think that's what I'm going to stick with now, boys, at this fairly late stage.
Okay, mate.
It's interesting, isn't it? I have gone for quite a strong bench, and I'll talk you through it when it comes to mine. But it's interesting at this stage of the season, you've got players in your. There's very little risk of rotation, with the exception of maybe Man City. There's very little risk of rotation, I think, at this stage, is there? But until the European competitions kick in, because they'll be playing once a week.
So you've got no Liverpool in there, have you, Ant? No Liverpool?
No, got no Liverpool. I've only got 1 City, 2 United. I've got 3 Arsenal, though. And I think, as you've just mentioned with the fixtures, you'd be slightly foolish not to have 3 Arsenal in, certainly to start the season, I would suggest.
Yeah.
So I did have a little play around. I was trying to get Salah in my team this morning and realised that I really couldn't unless I weakened myself elsewhere. So I'm going to stick to my guns and go with this. Okay. See where we go.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in years gone by, I pretty much started every season, and it didn't do me too badly. I started every season with 2 of like the cheapest possible assets on the bench, and maybe then one player who was like a 4.5 million defender, and then put all my money in my team. Whereas now, Harvey Barnes on the bench, it gives you options. And I think because of the COVID seasons and even last season with the Queen dying and stuff and all the games being rearranged, and having a strong bench seems very, very useful now. Hopefully, I think this season will be a bit more normal. But
you can, and I know Mike will get onto this when he comes to his team, but you can have a situation like Mike had with his last season where he continually got amazing points that were sat on his bench. When you have a team that's so strong, you can't decide who you're going to start and who you're going to bench, and then you have bench players scoring higher than your starting players. That is incredibly frustrating. And poor Mike had that on many occasions last week. So I kind of have gone for a bit of a balance, I think, knowing that Barnes or Mings could come in if need be, and that's why I've gone with Randolph. But yeah, it doesn't. To me, the second goalkeeper's sort of irrelevant unless you're lucky enough to have a keeper go down injured in the warm up or something.
But with the second goalkeeper thing, I mean, really, so Turner's signed for Forest today. We're recording on Wednesday. From Arsenal, Turner's signed for Forest. He's 4 million on the game. He's probably going to be their starting keeper, depending on whether Dean Henderson also signs for Forest. So having a starting goalkeeper that's 4 million, you may as well have him on your bench than someone else, just to rotate him if Onana's playing Man City or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so Mike, because you're the Oracle, we'll go to you last.
Well, that would make sense.
So, So I did a team this week, and I don't know if you've read. Those with young children might know the book "A Squash and a Squeeze" by Julia Donaldson, and there's this old lady who's complaining about the size of her house, and then she asks a wise old man for some advice, and he starts saying, "Oh, bring in a chicken, bring in a cow, bring in a hen, bring all these things." It wasn't a chicken; it was a hen. Just because I know we'll get emails about it. So she fills the house full of these animals, and then she says, "Well, why am I doing this?" And then the wise old man then says, "Take them all out." And then suddenly she realised her house is massive in comparison. And I tried that this week by bringing in all the big guns into my team, and then just gradually removing them. And it's very refreshing. So I've got two options here, and I'm tempted to stick with this one, which is my freemium option. Okay, so this is a very strong team in places. I'll run you through this quickly.
Okay.
Because I've heard people saying, "Oh, we can't have Haaland and Salah. Just have to have Haaland." Like you've said that. You've got one premium expensive player. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got Pickford, Pau Torres, because Pau will be an easy sound clip to do on here. Likewise, same reasons, Timber from Arsenal. I'll find something there. So Pau Torres, Timber, and Estupiñán at the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Midfield, Mudryk, Barnes, Matoma, Salah. Mudryk, just because I want so much for him to have a good season because he got so much abuse.
I think he will, mate.
I really hope for good things for him. So Mudryk, Barnes, Matoma, Salah. Up front, João Pedro, who I think is going to start for Brighton. Yep, you've taken him out. But I think he's going to start for Brighton. So João Pedro, Haaland, and Kane.
Good grief.
Oh, that's nice.
You've done very well there to get a freemium in. Very nice.
Kane and Salah all in the same team, along with Matoma, Barnes, Mudryk, João Pedro, Timber, Estupiñán, Pau Torres, and Pickford. And even then, on the bench, you got Turner, Kirkes, and Anderson of Newcastle, and then Bell of Luton, just as like the last sub. So it's not the worst team in the world.
No,
it's certainly not. It's certainly not. I think Pedro is slightly questionable. Going into the first game, I'm not convinced that he would start, and then to have Kirkes coming off your bench in the first game might not be so bad, but beyond that, it looks tricky from a defensive point of view for Bournemouth. It's an interesting couple of picks there, I think, in your 6.5s. That you've got 3 6.5 players there, and none of them are on Burmo.
Yeah, because
given his run.
Yeah. I just don't know what we're going to get from Brentford. without Tony, because their whole team was based around Tony last season, and I just don't know. So I could switch it around, if we find that Mudryk isn't playing, then I could swap him out.
I think Timber's a really interesting pick because I think there are so many. You're spoilt for choice at 5 mil defenders in Arsenal. So it's interesting the way the game is priced. Basically, everybody at 5 mil in the Arsenal defence. So you've got Timber, you've got Zinchenko, you've got Gabriel, you've got Saliba, all at 5.
Yeah.
And by far and away, the least owned at the moment is Timber.
Yeah. I really think it's just such an obvious sound clip for us to put into the podcast.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And also I think he's going to be very attacking. I would if I had to choose another Arsenal defender, it would be Saliba because I think he's decent.
Yeah.
But when Arsenal didn't have him last year, it really showed. When he got injured, it really showed for Arsenal. They were terrible.
That doesn't necessarily translate into fantasy football points, though, does it?
No, of course not. But I'm expecting big things this season from him. Anyway, so going with my squash and the squeeze analogy, I then thought, right, well, I don't think that team's terrible, but say I take Kane out, he's 12.5 million, and I swap him over for someone else. Okay, so if I take Kane out and swap him for just a 4.5 million striker, he can be my last sub on my bench.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hashtag Cameron Archer.
Cameron Archer, correct. So I then thought, what can I do with my team then? And that gives me access to Saka and Luke Shaw and 2.5 million in the bank.
Yeah, but what's the point of the money in the bank? I think again, you've got a good team there, to be honest, that 1 to 11. Mudryk, I think, is a good shout. I think he came in for quite a lot of stick last season. But if you look at Chelsea's run, I know we've obviously not highlighted them as having good fixtures, but actually after Liverpool on the opening day, they've got West Ham, Luton, Forest, Bournemouth, Villa and Fulham, and 3 of those games are at home. Yeah. So we expect Pochettino to do well. I know that it might be a bit of time, and hopefully they'll stick with him unlike they did with Potter. But I think the Chelsea assets, I mean, I'm saying this as a man who's not got any Chelsea assets, but I really like that Mudryk shout. I think he's gonna have a good season.
My other option is, so with the Kane money, because if you go Kane to Archer, suddenly you have 8 million spent, which so that can take Anderson in midfield to Saka. It can take who was it? Pau Torres to Luke Shaw or someone like that, and then I'd have 2.5 million in the bank that I could move if I wanted to. Matoma, Barnes, or Mudryk, who are all 6.5s, I could swap them out to get some Manchester United coverage with Rashford or Bruno, because I haven't with the Threemium. I have no United coverage at all, which is a slight worry.
I think it's pretty uninspiring when you look at forwards outside of Haaland and Kane. I don't see a lot of value there. I think the value's in the midfield, and that's often the way with this game. But I think outside of Haaland and Kane, I think Salah is the least convincing of your premiums. I think a couple of seasons ago it was a different story. But if you look at last year, Salah is priced up at 12.5 and Odegaard is priced up at 8.5. Okay, so there's a big gap, 4 million difference. Last season, Salah came in with 239. Odegaard came in at 212. So you're spending 4 million extra to gain 27 points there.
Yeah, of course, yeah. The thing that's tempting me with Salah is because its ownership is so relatively low at the moment. It's 23.8%. So
yeah.
And we know that he can go off. We know that at the start of the season, he loves to go off. So that's the problem. I mean, he's a player who's consistent. Odegaard I love watching Odegaard. He's a beautiful man and he's a great player. But he hasn't done it consistently year in, year out. Mo Salah has had 6 years in a row on fantasy football where he has scored more than 230 points.
You have, but you've got 2 players at different tail ends of their career. Odegaard had his proper breakthrough season last year. He started to fulfill his potential, whereas Salah, you would say Salah is on his way out. He'll be good for another year, maybe 2, but beyond that, he's not going to be the prospect is. So he is on a downward trajectory, I think, Salah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This
You
is
don't know what Liverpool are
incredibly.
going to turn up, do you? Either
This is
again,
genuinely incredibly intelligent conversations we're having here with regards to fancy.
Don't worry,
very
listeners.
deep, isn't it?
It will all go AWOL.
I don't want any new listeners to think that this is the standard we'll set for the rest of the season. There'll be a great deal of nonsense and distraction moving forward.
Yeah. And so Kane then if I kept my threemium team and neglected United assets, would you prefer to have Kane in there? Effectively, I've got the choice of Kane or Bruno or Rashford.
Oh, you have Kane.
Yeah, I mean, something to throw into the mix here.
Oh, I love throwing things.
Is this Bayern Munich talk going to play with his head at all, do we think? I think it's now their final offer has been rejected, hasn't it? Was the last I saw. But
scored 4 goals at the weekend.
Yeah, he's mentally shot by these talks. It's true.
He scored 4 goals at the weekend, and it's not like this is new. Like, it's true. The same story every year, and he's consistently hauled points for people. So I don't think that will be a massive factor unless the move actually does go ahead. I don't think it'll be an issue.
Yeah, look at those first 5 games as well.
14% I don't think ownership, Kane. 14.
I don't think you need to do anything with that team, Phil.
The only other curveball I tried doing was with the threemium, getting rid of Kane and putting in Archer or whoever it was, and then in midfield going for De Bruyne.
Oh no, De Bruyne is a lot of money.
Yeah, he is, but no one's got. He's 10.5 million, but hardly anyone's got him. And I was so tempted with De Bruyne, but it's the whole question. I mean, I think he'll start. He should be a starting midfielder.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But it's sometimes he won't, and that will irritate me a huge amount. Yeah. But it'd be nice to get a team with De Bruyne in there. But I haven't got with that team that I've just given you, I haven't got the likes of Saka, Rashford, Trippier, Stones, Gabriel, Shaw, Bruno, Watkins, all these highly owned players, Trent even. I haven't got any of them. So if they actually do well, I am in the mire,
Yeah, I like it, Phil. I genuinely do like it. I think Salah is a waste of money, and I think you could. Yeah, I think you could improve your midfield significantly by dropping Salah out and adding a million or 2 to a couple of those assets. But
if I did that, I could still have 2 premiums. I'd still, if I got rid of Salah,
still have Haaland and Kane.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd still be plentiful.
Yeah,
I think it's good, mate. Don't overthink it. That's what you'd always say to us.
I think it's really important to try, because we're having a bit of fun. We don't take the game particularly seriously. We're not.
Oh no, I do, and I'm not.
Okay, right. But you have you came out last week with stats. I mean, hopefully people are realizing second pod into the season that you have no more stats. Thank goodness. We're not. We just play for fun, and we should.
I don't.
Okay, cool. but it's nice to have players that other people don't have, and if they go off, then great. It's a bit of a gamble at the start of the season, and if not, I've got money in the bank to change it.
Yeah, look, I like what you've done. And I'd like to see you play it. It's interesting. I'm looking at the 2 squads. If you go as you've both projected there, and we've got 6 players in common across the squad,
okay.
And Phil, we've got 3. So
yeah, wow.
I like that. I like that. There's a bit of jeopardy between the 3 of us.
So a player I did consider instead of, I can't remember who it was instead of. It might have been instead of Timber. Was Ashley Young. Which genuinely, I'm considering Ashley Young at the back.
Okay,
really?
I mean, it was all sounding reasonably sensible up until that point.
Is this purely because of Everton's fixtures?
Well, 4.5 million. I reckon he'll be on some set pieces, because I reckon Dyche will love him on set pieces. He's got a good free kick on him, which is exactly how Everton like to get goals under Dyche, by just slamming the ball into the box. He's got Fulham, Villa, Wolves, Sheffield United as the first 4 fixtures. Why not?
Well,
because Everton. Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
And
I wouldn't.
Everton's backline's probably going to have a combined age of about 180 or something ridiculous. So I'd stay clear myself, mate. I think you've got a nice little team there that doesn't really need too much or any adjusting, to be perfectly honest.
Out of my two teams, then, do you think I go for the threemium team or the one with like Saka and Shaw?
I'd stick with your threemium, like I say, because your other one was dropping Kane, and I think Kane's a real asset, and I would love to have Kane in my side. So yeah, I think Salah's your waste of money. But
and also,
I won't be saying that 2 weeks in, but I think long term, I think he's your waste of money.
The other thing to consider, Phil, is that obviously Saka and Shaw both have. So why don't you go different? Otherwise, we're just getting the same points.
Yeah,
and that'd just be boring.
There is already, like every season, a template forming online. I've now seen it, and
don't look online. That is the key.
I'm really pleased that I don't have barely any of the template players.
Well, would you like to hear my template team?
Oh, here we go.
Mike's been online. He's been copying old FPL Harry.
Oh, I love FPL Harry. What a nice boy. But no,
lovely guy.
But no, I haven't been
someone with a who does all the stats and stuff. He's a good place to go.
Yeah. No, I mean this team is not massively different to the one I talked about last time out. So let me quickly rattle through it for you, because I'm conscious that time's getting on, and you got some questions there. So in goal for me, I've gone Steele for Brighton. I'm now very confident that he's going to be their number one to start the season. And we've talked about their opening fixtures. So Steele in goal. Continuing the theme, I've got Estupiñán at the back as well, because that seems to make sense with those opening fixtures. Luton at home, first of all, and some good games to follow. I've gone back four. I've gone big at the back, boys. So I've gone Saliba, Shaw, and Stones. I saw Stones getting into good attacking positions in the Community Shield. Shaw is there for now, but Shaw will get swapped out game week 2 for Chilwell, and I'll be dropping Shaw at that point.
So when you say swapped out, transferred out, or is he on your bench?
Yes, transferred out. Yeah, no, transferred out.
You've got 4 at the back, but you've named 3 of them.
Say again?
You've got 4 at the back, but you said 3.
No, Estupiñán, Saliba, Shaw, and Stones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it quite, sorry, just to interrupt there. Isn't it quite interesting that none of us have gone for a man who you had to have last season, Kieran Trippier? For me, he was just too expensive.
Too expensive, and the fixtures aren't great to start with. So yeah. Midfield, I really like it. There's a lot of mid-rangers, but I really like all of them. So Bruno Fernandes. I weighed up the Rashford thing, and statistically, actually, Rashford scored more points than Fernandes last season. Hence, I guess the extra 0.5 mil to get him. But I just think Bruno's consistent, and I think given the captaincy he's got this season as well, that will drive him on all the more. So, and he's on pens. So Fernandes, Maddison, who has performed really well in pre-season. I talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing about Maddison?
He's the trap of the year. He's the trap of the last 5 years. We'll see.
Mitoma, I think we've all got. We're all consistent in that. Saka and Mbeumo across the midfield. So it's a 4-5 and then a 1 of Haaland up top. However, on my bench,
you must have loads
I've got
on
one. Good grief!
I've got a fair bit. What do you mean I must have loads on my bench? Across the bench, I have got Turner. I bought him in. I've got him in. I've got Nico Jackson on the bench, Ollie Watkins on the bench, and I've got Anderson of Luton, who I flagged up last week.
So you have got a quite extraordinarily expensive bench.
Yeah.
What I've got is a really well-balanced squad that shouldn't need a lot of tinkering.
Are you not put off by what happened last year with your bench scoring ridiculously good points?
I think the point I made earlier about the lack of rotation, that's the nagging doubt in my mind, is that would I be better off, swapping out Jackson and Watkins and bringing in Kane and Archer? I think that would just about work.
Don't you dare.
Well, hold on. I mean, it's not like I've only just heard of Harry Kane because you've been talking about him.
That's fair.
Yeah, it would just 15, 12.5, 2.5. No, I'd have to drop I'd have to drop somebody else, and I don't really want to drop any of those players. I've been set on that midfield 5. I've had that consistently now for a few weeks, and I've been really annoyed. Ditto the back 4. I've had all 4 of those players in my draft for weeks now, and I think I'd really kick myself. It's a bit like why I don't ever settle on the same lottery numbers. That if I just per chance happen to see it come up on BBC after the 10 o'clock news, the winning lottery numbers and the ones I traditionally went with had come up and I wasn't playing, I'd be furious. Yeah. So I think at this stage, the guys that I've had in my mind for a little while, I need to stick with. So I like it. I think it's a really good, strong squad. I've got options moving forward in those game weeks, but I've also got those first few game weeks in mind with those Brighton players. You know, it's a triple up on Brighton.
Yeah, I am nervy about that because Brighton, we're all banking on them doing as well as they did last year, and they've now got so many in their forward line. Like Matoma's probably the biggest question mark in my team,
right?
Because I'm not. Yeah, there was some talk of him going to City, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think that is. There you go. Let's look. Time will tell, won't it? And we'll obviously next week we'll be able to review who fared well in the first week. But I like having those options on my bench. I don't like the idea of having a bench where I've got 2 4.5s and a 4 mil on my bench. That's not for me.
That's fine. Well, thanks, Mike. It's not bad. It's nice that everyone's different. Well, it's nice for now until next week when I have a calamity. But yeah. Gents, we've had some questions sent in, so we'll go through those, shall we?
Yeah, please.
Is Salah a must? His pre-season has been incredible, and he's under the radar. Well,
I think I've covered this.
Yeah.
No, it's not a must.
I'm with Mike on this. Not for me. Far too much money, and we don't know what Liverpool are going to turn up this season, do we?
I do think when they start playing their Europa League games, that'll be where I worry about getting rid of Salah because the amount of games he's going to be playing is going to be insane, and it's it's the whole Thursday Sunday thing.
Yeah,
yeah, it's not great.
Not for me, thank you.
Is the template midfield overrated? The template midfield, I assume, being sort of Saka, Odegaard, or Martinelli, or Bruno, Rashford, Matoma. They're the sort of 6 players. People have got sort of 4 or 5 from those 6, haven't they?
Yeah, me. Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I mean, they're all fairly cheap. I mean, all of them are at least 4 million cheaper than Salah, as an example. So, I think on current form and with fixtures, those are the kind of 4 players really you need to go for, in my opinion.
Okay. Who's your favourite 4.5 million defender?
Well, I might change my mind after the weekend, but at 0.2% ownership, Mr. Kirkes could be a real differential. Oh, it could be a disaster. Let's face it.
The thing is, he's not going to get many clean sheet points. I mean, he's in my squad. Bournemouth don't keep clean sheets, and the new manager, by all accounts, will score 1 more than you tactics. So I think we will concede goals, but going forward, he's got the potential to get some assists.
I don't see that he can be the best 4.5 option.
Not when you got Ashley Young, I suppose, but
that's true.
I think you know the Villa assets at 4.5 are, they stand out. I think Rico Henry. We've talked about Brentford's fixtures. I think Rico Henry at 4.5 is a really good pick.
You really do like Brentford, don't you, Mike? You really are targeting them to start the season.
I just think if you look at the teams last season, they were the best of the rest that didn't qualify for Europe. So they were, I think they were 3 points away from qualifying for Europe. So, and they haven't got Europe. And I think that was to their benefit last season. I think it'll be to their benefit this season. You look at, I think that's where the likes of Chelsea are going to benefit this season as well.
Yeah.
So I think Brentford will be the best of the rest this year. I think Europe will stretch the likes of Brighton. Which, I mean, who else is going to step in? I mean, West Ham haven't strengthened. Palace, they've let Zaha go, so they haven't really. I don't really see them improving. None of those teams that were in the middle of the table, you feel have really kicked on. So if you stay as is, I absolutely grant you that Tony's not there. But Brentford's recruitment's been pretty sound over the years, and they've got a good squad. I think they're the ones that will kick on.
an outside option for a 4.5 million defender. Bearing in mind Chelsea's defensive issues at the moment, they've got a lot of injuries and they've got rid of a few actually. Is Levi Colwill, who was at Brighton last year. He didn't play loads for Brighton. He played. He started 13 games, but he's signed a new contract with Chelsea. People are talking about him like he's the next Rio Ferdinand. And so he may well end up starting the season for Chelsea in defence at 4.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at last season, the highest point scoring defender that is currently at 4.5 in the game is Tyrone Mings. I mean, nod to Ant there on that.
Yeah.
A lot of people have gone. A lot of people are going for Botman. A lot, I think, given their clean sheet record that Newcastle had until it sort of started to fade away just at the end there of the season. They were keeping an awful lot of clean sheets. So yeah, most people have gone for Botman over Mings, but see, they're another team, Villa, who I mean, not in the short term, but in the medium term, they're going to have to be competing in Europe, and I think I'm not sure they've got the squad to do that.
Okay, fair enough. Next question: if Kane stays at Spurs, will he outscore Haaland in an incredibly attack-minded Spurs team? That's from Mickey, who is a Spurs fan.
Asking hope rather than expectation.
Well, Haaland hasn't scored in the last 6 or 7 games he's played. Is that correct?
Yeah,
sounds about right, doesn't it? But you look at City's fixtures. I don't know. I mean, if you're brave, I think there's only about 14% of players currently don't have Haaland, and I think you'd be brave to start the season without him. Put it that way, even though he is 14 million.
Have you got him because everyone else has got him, and if he goes off, you're in a big trouble? Because that's why I've got him. That's the only reason I've got him. It's peer pressure.
Well, no, I think those fixtures as well.
It's like when
I think
my
those fixtures as well.
When my next door neighbours mow their lawn, it's like, oh, now I've got to mow my lawn because otherwise I look like a terrible human being. And the other week, both sides of my house mowed their lawn, and suddenly your lawn looks like a jungle. So I had to buy Haaland.
In a similar vein, if you want to have a little bit of fun on your road, early tea time tonight. I think it's bin night in Alderholt.
Yeah, put the wrong one out as a prank.
Put the wrong one out early doors and see how many people follow you.
The problem is I will forget. Last week I was convinced it was rubbish, not recycling, and everyone else had recycling, so I just did it. I just followed the crowd. Yeah.
You know, you get old when we're talking about bins.
Yeah. Happy days. So yeah, do you think Kane could outscore Haaland? I reckon he could. Genuinely, I think he's the. I agree. Like as a priority, I think he's probably is a better option than Salah if you're getting 2 premiums.
I mean, he tends to start slow, though, doesn't he? Mr. Kane, he had this record anyway. He couldn't score in August seemingly, but depends what kind of a start he gets. If he gets off to a good start, and with Spurs' fixtures, he could well do. Then, yeah. But if Haaland scores on Friday night, then yeah, I'm not convinced by this myself.
Okay.
So that begs the question: who are you captaining this week? And is it Haaland? Because Phil, I know you don't like captaining somebody who plays in the first game.
No way am I captaining Haaland this week.
Right.
First game.
Game.
And I think that even if Haaland scores, I think because Pep loves what's his chops, Burnley manager, name's gone out. Company. I think out of a sign of respect, they'll just take their foot off the gas.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I don't think that will happen, but okay.
No, I don't think that's a thing at all. But yeah, okay.
If I had Rashford or Bruno, I would be captaining them purely because the whole weekend you think, oh, I've still got my captain to play because he's playing on Monday night. Just a warning to those who don't realise the deadline is 90 minutes before kickoff of the first game of the game week, and this week it's on a Friday. So your deadline is.
You're listening to this on Friday night. Our apologies.
Yeah. So 6:30 p.m. on Friday night is the deadline. But yeah, I would be looking at captaining a United asset, Rashford or Fernandes. If you've got both, then probably Rashford. Personally, what about you, Ant? Who are you captaining?
Saka. Forest were pretty atrocious away from home last season. Arsenal very good at home. Saka's looked lively, I think, in pre-season. So yeah, I've gone for him.
Okay, Mike.
I'm going Haaland because I'm too scared of everybody else hauling. Yeah, it's fair.
I think that's a tough
Exciting.
game. I think Vincent Kompany will have Burnley very well drilled. I'm not saying they're going to necessarily beat City or even get a draw, but I don't. If Haaland is to score, I don't see him getting more than one, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exciting having 3 different captains. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, look at this for the start of a season. Cool.
So, boys, time is. Oh, yeah, fine. That felt like a good place to end it. Go on.
Okay, so Cole R on Twitter, Cole R87. Now, my biggest dilemma now is Salah. I've got great drafts without him, but my mind keeps going back to him. I can get decent drafts with him too, but I'm weak in defense and bench. Cole R, just bring him in. Live the dream. Because
no, I couldn't disagree more.
2-1 says I'm wrong. Don't bring him in. Joe asks,
okay.
I'm thinking of taking a punt on Garnacho of United, then possibly moving him to a Bournemouth midfielder in a few weeks. Who do you think is the best 5 million Bournemouth midfielder? A question no one was expecting.
Great question.
I think so. I think you've got 2 options, and if you're waiting to see, then all the better. I think you're probably looking at Kluivert as a prospect in midfield at 5 mil. But also, just keep an eye on David Brooks, guys. He's looked really good. He's looked back to his best in pre-season after, obviously, a couple of years out with being poorly. I would not be surprised to see Brooks starting for Bournemouth and cementing his place in the team now, which is a really pleasant surprise because I figured he'd probably end up going out on loan. But he's looked probably our best player in pre-season. Kluivert at 5 mil is an option. Yeah,
a name I would throw into the hat here is Dango Atara, who we signed in January from Warrior, who looked very lively. Scored that late winner, didn't he, away at Spurs last season? So he's got something about him. He's very raw, I think, but at 5 million, he's got a goal or an assist in him, I would suggest. So I would be going for him personally over Kluivert or Brooks.
The last question we've got is from Voicha. Kane or Salah? Can't really have them both. Well, you can, Voicha. You can have all 3. Kane, Salah,
just
and
copy
Haaland.
Phil.
Copy me. But if you have to choose, probably I've been swayed to think it's Kane.
Yeah,
I'd go Kane.
Okay.
Look, you'll be kicking yourself in game week 2 when Salah scores a hat trick against Bournemouth. But I mean, that's certainly not a hope, but it's a fear. But I think outside of that week 2, I don't particularly like Liverpool's opening fixtures. I don't think they're particularly exciting. So yeah, I would definitely be looking at Kane.
Liverpool's start to the season, if you need reminding, is Chelsea away, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away, Villa at home, Wolves away. So yeah, it's not great. Not great. Gents, it's been nice to get back. It feels like this has been probably one of our most professional turnouts we've ever had. This is horrible.
And I can only apologise for that. It won't happen again.
No.
Boys, we're not going to go without picking our first week punts, are we? Surely not.
Oh,
no.
Thank goodness someone's on the ball. This is where we pick a player of less than 2% ownership. And if they do well, then next week our captain won't get picked by a listener. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm going to jump straight in and pick a name that Mike's just mentioned. Mr. Kluivert, 0.7% ownership, making his Bournemouth debut. Hopefully, I presume he will anyway, at home to West Ham. So yeah, I'm going with him.
Okay. Phil?
Obviously, I hadn't even considered looking at this. So I've got a sound clip. So I am going to go for
which one? Jaden?
Khaled. No, I go for the Man United one because it will give me something to look forward to on Monday.
Okay, I'm going to go for Kulusevski.
For
Spurs, 1.8% ownership, 7 mil on the game.
7 mil, yeah, that's not a terrible price, but there's so many good 6.5 mils, isn't there?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, gents, it's been fun. Have a nice rest of the week and good luck for the first game of the season, everyone.
I've got to go with you.
Before we go, Phil, it feels like it'd be wrong not to wish you a very happy birthday for tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Phil.
We
Thank
are
you,
getting so
guys.
old now that we are nearly catching Mike up, but we've still got a few years on him yet. But yeah, happy
Thank
birthday
you.
for tomorrow,
Thank
mate.
you.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
And
That means
consider that shout out your gift.
Okay, guys. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye now.